In F1, everyone remembers who wins a driver's championship. But what about the rest of them? What about the person that came second place? What about the person that bottled the championship? Piastri. What about all of these people throughout F1 history that just get forgotten because they ended up losing their championship fights? Well, in today's video, I want to go on a journey of trying to find out through lots and lots of research about who is F1's biggest bottle job. Who in F1 has screwed up the most, or probably better put, who in F1 has screwed up when it meant the most for their individual careers? Well, let's go and bloody find out. So first of all, let's go through a few ideas of how we can try to calculate this and find out who takes the crown for biggest bottler. Losing from the biggest gap. Now for this category of bottlers, a lot of older drivers really do get forgiven or not added because, well, a lot of the times when they did lose by all of these massive points differences, it's because they couldn't really do anything else. They'd either been in a crash or they'd been in an incident that had taken them out for most of the season. So it physically wasn't in the hands of the driver. Take, for instance, 1976. This would look like a massive bottle job from Niki Lauda to let James Hunt win the championship, as he lost a 23-point gap, which in today's terms is about 73 points. However, we know Niki Lauda was actually missing from quite a few races that season because of a crash in Germany. Some could say that in itself is a bottle, but I don't think that's the right way I'm trying to go around it today. So I do think stuff like the 1976 championship isn't really a bottle from Lauda. When he's in the hospital, there's nothing he can do. Same goes for someone like Pironi in 1982. He was looking actually pretty comfortable in the championships with a 13-point lead to Rosberg, again about 43 points in today's standard, and he had a crash that basically ended his F1 career there and then, and he couldn't compete in the last few races. So again, out of his hands, he couldn't do anything. So going into actual contenders for the biggest bottle job, definitely the first one that comes to mind is Hamilton 2007. Now, I do say the first proper contender. When I mean that, I mean first half proper contender, because I do have to say straight away, people like Lewis Hamilton are definitely not the biggest bottlers in F1. For me, you can't be a big bottler if you've won 7 championships. It doesn't matter if you bottled 10 championship fights, but you still won 7. At the end of the day, people are still going to focus on those 7 world championships. So that really doesn't put Hamilton into a position where, yes, he made these mistakes and they were bottles at the time, but he's done so much else throughout his career, you can't say that Hamilton is the biggest bottler. But in 2007, he did bottle a 72-point gap in today's terms to Raikkonen, which is absolutely huge in the last few races. So he's definitely not on the list, but it is one of the biggest individual, just looking at a season, bottles in F1. Considering one of Hamilton or Alonso should have won that championship, it was so easy for one of them to win, and they both ended up screwing up. Alonso actually gets added to this as well, partly. He did also screw up just by not being in Hamilton's position. But for me, drivers who are actually in contention for this first category of bottler, Carlos Reutemann in 1981. Reutemann had a 17-point gap to Piquet. Again, 52 points in today's standard points. And he ended up losing the championship by 1 point. Only scoring in 2 of the last 6 races in the season, and even that was only 6 points altogether. At the time as well, it is arguable that Williams was the fastest car on the grid as well, so it should have been a car able to get over the line and get that championship for him. And then also, because it's Carlos Reutemann, that really doesn't help him in the sense of, you know how Lewis Hamilton had 7 world championships? That sort of negates that bottle. Carlos Reutemann, this is the only time he would really get proper close to the championship. This is his one and only second place, and he would never win a championship after this big bottle. Which for me, that definitely makes him the first finalist and the biggest bottler for losing from the biggest gap in F1. And for anyone screaming right now, where's Piastri? Where's Piastri? Piastri only had a 30-odd point gap to Lando Norris. I don't think it's as big as a bottle as definitely Reutemann. This is a huge bottle. I don't think it's as big as Oscar Piastri's bottle. Final race losses. So for this category of bottler, I'm going to be talking about all of F1 drivers who have lost in the final race of the championship. And again, we get the same thing of, realistically, if you've done something else better or you have improved throughout the rest of your career, you can't really be called a bottler. Again, it goes for 21 Abu Dhabi. Lewis Hamilton is a really good example for all of this. 07 Brazil, again, both Alonso and Hamilton. 86 Mansell. Mansell had gone to get championships, so it doesn't stain his legacy as much. And then for me, any driver that was actually chasing the lead championship contender before the final race also doesn't count as a big bottle. I'm talking people like 25 Verstappen. We can't be calling that a bottle. 08 Massa. He did everything he could. Again, it's not really a bottle when he was behind them before the final race actually started. So for me, there is one name in F1 history that actually really stands out in this category, and sadly for this driver, it is Eddie Irvine. After Schumacher suffered a terrible leg injury, actually breaking his leg at Silverstone in '99, Eddie Irvine all of a sudden kind of got pushed into the limelight of becoming Ferrari's #1 driver. He was still in Ferrari, it was just like, you know, he was their #2 driver at the time. And all of a sudden, all of Ferrari's dreams and hopes kind of went on to Eddie Irvine's shoulders. This was his chance to win a championship when Michael Schumacher was out of contention. And especially as some would consider the Ferrari the fastest car on the grid after Michael Schumacher got back into that car and actually got pretty close back to Hakkinen and Irvine. Irvine should have got across the line and won 99. He should have won the Drivers' Championship this season, and he did have momentum for a lot of the season. Basically, all the way up to the final race, he was winning the championship. The final race, heading into it, he had 70 points to Hakkinen on 66. 4-point gap. That time in F1, it's not a crazy big gap. Realistically, Hakkinen had to win, and that was all he had to do because they were both on 4 wins. It didn't matter if Irvine came second because you only got 6 points for getting second place in 99. But it still left Irvine with the big advantage because if Hakkinen didn't win, it was going to be a very, very hard task, even if Irvine was 3rd or 4th, to re-overtake him in the championship. But sadly for Eddie Irvine, it wasn't enough because Mika Hakkinen would do exactly that, getting 1st place. Michael Schumacher 5 seconds behind. Quite a controversial season in the sense of, did Ferrari even want Eddie Irvine to win? That does weigh on my mind a little bit. It is kind of known that Ferrari would prefer if Schumacher won the championship, so take that as you will. But to lose the championship in the final race in a season where Schumacher, your main big teammate rival, isn't actually in half the season, plus when the Ferrari was arguably the fastest car, for me that makes him the biggest bottler of losing from the final race and into the final with Carlos Reutemann. Amount of second places, the final category for biggest bottler in F1 for me, because the one final way that you can see if someone is a big bottler in F1 is to see how many times they came second place in the standings. Because as the wise Reese Bobby said,
always remember, if you ain't first, last.
And this is the list of all drivers that have come second place with their amount of times throughout F1 history. Let's try to do this in one breath. Fangio 2 times, Ascari, Farina, Gonzalez, Moss 4 times, Brooks 1 time, McLaren, Von Trips, Clark, Graham Hill 3 times, Surtees, Brabham, Stewart 2 times, Ix 2 times, Peterson, Fittipaldi 2 times, Regazzoni, Lauda, Scheckter, Peterson, Gilles Villeneuve, Piquet, Reutemann, Peroni, running out of, Prost 4 times, Alboreto, Mansell 3 times, Senna 2 times, Patrese, Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, Frentzen, Schumacher 2 times plus a DSQ, Irvine, Hakkinen, Coulthard, Barrichello 2 times, Raikkonen 2 times, Hamilton 3 times, Alonso 3 times, technically 4 times, counting 07, Massa, Vettel 3 times, Button, Rosberg 2 times, Bottas 2 times, Leclerc, Perez, Norris and Verstappen. So out of all of those, who is the biggest bottler? Well, again, we're sort of starting off with what I've been spouting on about this entire video of you can't be one of F1's biggest bottlers if you ended up doing something else with your career after said bottle. So straight away, looking at someone like Fernando Alonso, I'm instantly taking him off this list. Even though he has come second 3 times, he's lost final races of the season. Technically 4 times if we're going to count his 109 points in 07. Even though it was 3rd place, again, McLaren bottled it. One of those 2 should have won. But for me, because of how these second places came, it also does affect that he's not a bottler. 2010, 2012, 2013. Ferrari were never the fastest car in any of these seasons, and he was outperforming that car to a point where he almost won the championship. Just an incredible feat, even though he didn't win it in the end. Plus, like I said, he has won 2 World Drivers' Championships, so he can't be one of F1's biggest bottlers. Similar situation for Alain Prost. He actually comes up on this list, like I mentioned, 3 times, but similar to Alonso, he's won World Drivers' Championships. So I don't think he can be classified as a bottler. But I do think it is a little bit worse for Alain Prost, considering in 88 it was against his teammate, and in 1984 to Niki Lauda, of course. So for me, he is definitely higher up in the list of all of it. However, he's definitely not the biggest bottle job. And other F1 drivers that really come into that category are the likes of Hamilton 3 times, we've talked about this, Graham Hill 3 times as well, Sebastian Vettel 3 times, Schumacher 2 times plus the DSQ, Mansell 3 times, and Fangio 2 times. All of them would go on to win Drivers' Championships. They would do something else with their career. These moments didn't define them in F1. But sadly, for the finalists of this category, you know who did? Stirling Moss. What a brilliant, brilliant driver. But he is the only driver to get 4 second places in a row. He got second place in 1955, 56, 57, and 58. And this one does hurt because I really do like Stirling Moss. But what was helping a lot of the other drivers in this list doesn't help him. He never ended up winning a Drivers' Championship. Now, he lost to Fangio in equal machinery in 1955. He lost again to Fangio in 56 in separate cars, but both the Ferrari and Maserati were pretty level on performance. In 57, to be fair, this one, you can give him the benefit of the doubt because he wasn't in the fastest car. He wasn't actually close to getting first place. And then in 1958, this was another annoying one for him because he was just riddled with DNFs, riddled with mechanical issues. And this was the season he should have won, and he didn't. He ended up losing this championship by 1 point to Mike Hawthorne in the Ferrari. So minimum 2 of the 4 seasons he bottled, and if you're counting 1958 as well, that's 3 of the 4, which is a lot more than any other on this list without a Drivers' Championship. So heading into the finalists of the biggest F1 bottle job throughout F1 history, you have Carlos Reutemann. 1981 was the season he did his bottle, never won a Drivers' Championship, never got close again to winning. Eddie Irvine lost on the final race of the season after holding the advantage, should have won the championship. And then of course we have Stirling Moss, who came second place 4 consecutive seasons, never winning a Drivers' Championship. And before I give my answer on my biggest bottle job in F1 history, comment down below who do you think is the biggest bottle job out of these 3? Or hey, is it someone I missed out? Comment down below. And well, sadly for me, it has to be Stirling Moss. And listen, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to act like I know everything that happened in the 50s in F1. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if Stirling Moss was more unlucky or it was a bit more of a bottle. Because it is hard to find exactly what happens in those races, but from all of the stats, he's leading by quite some country mile. I do think Reutemann has a little bit of an edge to not doing this because it was 1 season. It was bad, but it was 1 season, and also he had a little bit of issues inside Williams with his teammate Alan Jones. And then also with Eddie Irvine, there's also all of these rumours of, well, did Ferrari even want Eddie Irvine to win? So did he have the full backing of Ferrari? Obviously, it's all just theories, but in my head, I think that makes both of them less of a bottle than Stirling Moss overall. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it because, again, it is beautiful winter break slop. Please bring back the F1 season. I can't wait for it to start. All of the liveries are coming out. I'm so excited to see what everyone brings in. What's the order going to be? I don't know. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.